Hello and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy, episode number 462 for the week of July 28th, 2020. My name is Ryan Higgins. Who's here with me this week?
Brock Seger.
Kevin.
And Charlie.
Hello, hello.
A good intro. Solid intro. Look at that. We can do it.
They're all solid. They're just not all accurate.
Toby may jump in here at some point. I don't know what his plan is, but we'll see. We'll figure
Do we ever know Toby's plans?
No.
Well, I'm actually just wondering how jumping in works out with the way we record now. Do we have to stop, get him in, and then start again, or
No, he could jump in. I just have to fiddle around with adding him to the audio when we export it at the end. So it's no big deal. I can figure it out. It's not too bad. Of course, if he jumps in now that we're 50 seconds in, I could just restart. But if he jumps in like 15 minutes, then well, it doesn't make sense. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about this week. Well, I don't know. Actually, maybe not a bunch of stuff. A decent amount of stuff. But there was a big brouhaha over the weekend that I think is worth covering here, just because it really relates to our big topic last week of our good friends over at Comicsgate. No, I'm joking. Of course, I'm joking. Please. So if you followed some of the news last week about the frustration with Dynamite Comics and working with a online troll and hate group called Comicsgate, may have seen that become a big thing over the past weekend. One of the artists that works with Dynamite Comics regularly, his name is Jay Lee. Of course, he's done plenty of things outside of working with Dynamite. He's God, I like some of his big stuff. He's a lot of cover art. He did Inhumans. He did that Inhumans miniseries back with Paul Jenkins in like 98, 99.
He did the Ozymandias before Watchmen.
Yep. What was his?
He did Batman and Superman when it was relaunched on New 52 for a bit.
Yeah, he doesn't do a ton of interior. What was his Image book that he kind of launched?
Oh God.
Yeah, Hell something.
Yeah, it was Hell something.
Yeah.
What the hell was it?
Look it up. It's like I could see the cover. I could see the cover of number one, like in the like right in the like in my brain. Jay Lee's been an artist for a long time, but he has
Hellshock.
There you go. Thank you. But he has done obviously a lot of covers for Dynamite, which again, that's fine. A lot of great people work for Dynamite, and regardless of what's going on with them, it came out over the weekend. Oh, well, we actually talked about it last week about the launch of Rorschach, Tom King's Rorschach miniseries from DC Comics, and we talked about that on the last podcast. And they released the variant cover for Rorschach #1, and it is a cover by Jay Lee. Now, a lot of people instantly took to Tom King's Twitter to be like, hey, not only does Jay Lee work with Dynamite regularly, which some people are, obviously still very unsure about Dynamite's commitment to actually trying to get away from working with Comicsgate people. Jay Lee's actually done 2 different covers for Ethan Van Sciver's crowd-funded Cyberfrog comic, where including like the most recent one was I don't remember, it was like earlier this year, I think. He's working, Jay Lee's working directly with these people, with Ethan Van Sciver and Comicsgate people. Therefore, you have someone that's a Comicsgate creator now continuing to work within DC Comics. And Tom King instantly was like, we don't get any say over the variant covers. That's, obviously I don't want any part of this. I consider the main cover, the real cover. Why, I'm talking to DC to find out why they're having this guy in the book, blah, blah, blah. The problem is this. I mean, you can see where we're probably going with this here. Jay Lee doesn't really do social media. He has an Instagram account, but he doesn't post a lot on it. He's very disconnected from. I mean, he obviously goes to conventions and everything like that, but he's not like a regular on comic book creator social media, especially things like Twitter, where a lot of these conversations take place. And within a couple days, a day or two, it became pretty clear that people had reached out to Jay Lee said, like, what are you doing? Why are you working with these people? Why are you working with Comicsgate? You're getting called out over this. And he had no idea what was going on. He had never heard of this. He never knew. This was just another job offer to him. He didn't know. Seemed, despite Tom King saying, hey, I reached out to Jay Lee. I found out he wasn't part of it. I think we're all good now. Jay Lee was clearly not. That was not the case. And Jay Lee was still mad at Tom King's irresponsible tweets over the Rorschach cover, and very mad at obviously Tom King and this kind of spreading out the way it did. Tom King today put out a more public apology after giving it the weekend thing, let things kind of go there, kind of cool down. I'm sure he says he reached out to Jay Lee, other people talking to him, blah 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 blah. This all, as frustrating as this all is, the biggest frustration is this is exactly what these guys at Comicsgate want, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want these creators to sort of fight each other and kind of like, oh, if we can claim they're ours, then we can cause like these rifts within the community, right? I mean, it's just it's really, at the end of the day, it's a bunch of trolls, and this is exactly the sort of thing that they want to happen.
I mean, it definitely is the kind of thing that they thrive on to a degree, but this is one of those kind of things where Tom King making the statement reaffirmed sort of a connection that, at least in Jay Lee's mind, wasn't there and is very hard to unring to a degree.
Right.
And I can completely see Jay Lee's sort of point of view of...
Oh, yeah. Totally.
It definitely falls into that category of, once you are targeted as being a member of certain groups or having committed certain things, it's really hard to unring that bell.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Regardless of what investigations happen or whatnot, it's very, very hard to pull that back.
Yeah, for Jay Lee, he should be more aware of who he's working with.
Well,
I think
I agree, considering he was being tagged in such a way to promote Comicsgate properties.
Right.
So,
however, yeah. Tom King obviously should have not done this publicly. Had he talked to Jay Lee and Jay Lee was like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm totally into this," then I think Tom King is well within his right. They both made mistakes here.
So,
I think Tom King maybe made a bit of a bigger blunder. Jay Lee. This isn't like he broke the law. It's not like, ignorance is, just doesn't matter. But he did inadvertently work with some very sketchy people. And hopefully that's the end of it. With Tom King, though, he really should have, tried to talk to him first. So it's a pretty shitty situation all around. Go ahead, Brock.
It is a shitty situation. But I think the biggest issue here that I've seen throughout the whole weekend is that Tom brought it to his employer, which is what he was supposed, that's who he would bring it to.
Mm-hmm.
He brought it to Twitter, but he didn't directly say Jay is a Comicsgater. He said that his work seems to be associated with Comicsgate people, right? Tom's looking out for his best interest, which is his career, right? Because if this is true, then it's going to be tied to him. Now, reaching out is what he should have done to Jay Lee, but that didn't happen. Then we don't get anything from Jay Lee for a few days, but when we do get it, and I want to quote here in the article that was it Chris Arendt that you linked us to?
Mm-hmm. Chris Arendt, yeah.
Lee says, instead a part of the internet I avoid like the plague came barging in. That means he's aware of this part of the internet, of something that's negative in the internet. And he says, I had companies I'm working for calling me, friends reaching out to me, seeing hate pour out a stranger's mouth, accusing me of things I have no knowledge of. But in this, you just literally said this is part of the internet that you avoid, so you know about it. You're also drawing a character that you would have to research.
There's a big difference of being aware of troll culture and being aware of a particular movement.
Yeah, I mean, I avoid white supremacists, but I could very easily end up knowing one accidentally, right? Or being targeted and kind of conned into working for one, right?
But the thing is as well,
because I guarantee you, Ethan Van Sciver wrote to 50 creators and was like, "Hey, do a cover for me," and 49 said no, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing is like this is where it's Jay's fault in not researching researching what he's working for, and so on and so forth. He's just drawing a cover for Cyberfrog. I'm like, you look up Cyberfrog, within a few clicks, you're going to find the connection to Comicsgate. It is not that hard.
It is frustrating that you have to do that these days. I don't blame Jay Lee. Like, oh, you're again. People make mistakes. People don't know. I don't think there's any reason to believe he did this with any sort of malice or intent to be part of this group. He clearly wasn't. I think once you know it, if he went back to work for them again, regardless if he agrees with them or not, that says something different. But my hope is that, again, like Dynamite, regardless of what they claim, now that they've made a commitment, they won't go back to it. So,
find the other thing I found weird was Tom tweeted that he talked to Jay and that things were fine, but then Jay says they're not. So,
yeah, well,
but that's the thing is if you had a conversation with this person, you talked this out, then one person is saying one thing, one person is saying another.
Well, to me, what Tom King was specifically saying is he talked to Jay and he no longer has a problem with him doing a variant cover for the book.
Yeah.
As far as he was concerned, things were fine. He's ready to support this variant cover kind of thing. Yeah. I don't think it was necessarily saying everything's fine with the situation, more retracting his initial statement of saying, I have a problem with this particular variant cover.
Yep. Let me grab Tom King's official statement today. Let me grab it. He says, as I've done privately, I'd like to publicly apologize to Jay Lee, publicly right here, for my actions a few days ago. I should have talked with Jay before I sent a tweet out about him that put his career at risk. I made a critical mistake and I am profoundly sorry. I will do what I can to repair this with Jay and I will do better in the future. I'm not going to offer explanation because they sound like excuses and I'm not asking for forgiveness or understanding. I'm just saying I see what I did and I'm going to try to make it up for it. Thank you. And then he did delete his tweet because he said, I've kept up the tweets to this point in order to show that I was not hiding my actions. I will now take them down. The bigger problem here is that Comicsgate immediately jumped on this and started a hashtag claiming that Tom King hates Asian people, which is, again, just feeding into their goal here of we cause problems, which causes people to have to react. Even the slightest mistake in that reaction, boom, we capitalize on it, and now we can just hammer that person forever. If you're a random comic fan who has no idea what's going on with any of this, and you see Tom King hates Asian people, like, what the hell? And all of these accounts are talking about it, you may very easily believe it. And then you may very easily find yourself talking and agreeing with these Comicsgate accounts, and then suddenly you're now a part of it inadvertently. And that's exactly what their plan is here. They create these situations that they didn't create this specific situation, but they capitalize on situations to drive more people to their cause, to get people who are not as informed, to get them to make them believe lies and make them believe falsehoods. And again, they will hammer Tom King with this hashtag now, literally forever, and it's going to continue to become a thing. And the greater community has to shut these people down, mute them, block them, report them, get them out. I hate talking about these people on here and giving them any sort of air, but they've been, not that they've been silent, but they haven't done anything for a while. Mostly ignored by everyone. This was just like this weird 1-2 punch of Dynamite and Tom King and Jay Lee, and now like I said last week, oh God, I want this to be over. I don't want to hear about these guys again anytime soon. So if you saw this stuff over the weekend and you don't know what it was, or you think it's real, it's not, right? So yeah, it's just
it was funny because over the weekend I had made some comments to on Tom's thread, and I'm like, I had said it might not have been the best way to do it, but you do need to call out bigotry and hate when, as often, when you see it like point blank, and people are arguing that no, you shouldn't. It's something that, has consequences. I'm like, yeah, it has consequences. Associations with those people will have consequences. We live in a digital era where everything is there. You going to a party and drinking heavily could affect a job prospect for you. If there's pictures of you online on your social media, like just wasted, like anything that you associate with, can come back to bite you in the ass online.
Oh yeah, of course. But I think here this is that perfect situation, like we talked about. I believe Jay Lee had no idea about any of this stuff. I believe that he will no longer work for them. I have to, right? Because if suddenly 6 months from now he's doing another Cyberfrog comic, then what? Then what the hell, right? He knows now. Now there's no excuse. Dynamite's been outed. Now there's no excuse, right? We'll see what happens. Tom King made a mistake. I could forgive him. It's very frustrating. God knows I've said and done stupid stuff on the internet because you're frustrated, right?
I have to say, though, when we met him, he only talked to you and he didn't talk to me at all. So,
oh, that's true. That's true. He only hates half Asians, Toby.
Yeah. I was very offended that he would only talk to you, and I was not happy that Gerard didn't do a sketch in my book. He just signed it, and then off I went. So, yeah, I'm very pissed off.
Toby, you're just part of the entourage. Ryan Higgins is the star.
I was going to add, I'm totally joking, by the way, so don't take me serious. The guys were great. Sorry.
How much of this do you see all this, Toby?
I saw some of it.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
Well, what's funny to me is
I understand he was trying to call out someone and it didn't go the right way. So I understand it from both sides, and I see Jay Lee also being pissed off for obvious reasons. So
so as much as it comes across as sort of calling out Jay Lee, I think it was mainly the purpose. Obviously, was trying to distance himself from the controversy he saw coming.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the purpose here was to out anyone. I think, obviously, his purpose was, I don't want to get pulled into exactly what he caused.
Yeah, and I fully agree on that. I totally think that was the case. It sucks that, Jay Lee, if he is not part of this, I don't think he is, that he got pulled into this. And I can understand him being pissed off, and it has a lot of consequences, right? So he has the right to be pissed off. So the whole situation is really horrible, and it's too bad that this community has a divide like this, because we really should just move on to better things.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah,
I would move on to some really good things.
Excellent.
That's the 2020,
like the Umbrella Academy happening this starting weekend.
Well, that's soon. Umbrella Academy is really soon. You got to marathon that all in one night.
Absolutely.
And then record a roundup.
Absolutely. Well, like the round. Well, which episode is it? The Umbrella that Ryan never released that we recorded like 2 years ago.
I released everything.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Well, see, Toby. Now we can make it a double.
Yeah. Season 1 and season 2.
I released all the episodes. I don't know what you're talking about.
Sure, I know you're missing one of them. I'm pretty certain of it. At least 2, maybe 1.
Well,
I love the term "at least 2, maybe 1."
Maybe 1.
Hey, I didn't say I was good with numbers. I'm only half Asian after all.
Let's talk about the 2020 Eisners. Kevin, did you pay attention to the voting weirdness? Did you catch?
Vaguely. It feels like that happened 6 months ago,
Yeah.
but it was actually like 1 month ago, right?
Yeah.
They had to do the revote, right?
Yeah. There was some weirdness with the Eisners that people were logging in and like seeing other people's votes and info, and it seems like some people didn't get like reinvited back to vote, and I'm not exactly sure what happened there. So much like all Major League Sports for 2020, the Eisners may have kind of this weird asterisk on it for this year. You ever try to watch baseball recently? God, it's really fucking weird.
Did you see that footage of the Philly fanatic doing the wave?
Just by himself?
Yeah, in an empty.
Yeah. I love all the.
That is 2020. That image, him with those cardboard fans doing a wave by himself, is 2020. That's the banner image.
All the lonely mascots are. Yeah. It's pretty great. But they did do the 32nd annual Will Eisner Comic Industry Award, also known as the Eisners. And the number one winner this year was Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, which is the kind of teenage original graphic novel by Mariko Tamaki and Rosemary Valerio O'Connell. And Mariko Tamaki, her run on Wonder Woman starts tomorrow, or today if you do Tuesday release.
Nobody acknowledges. We just acknowledge Wednesday.
Yeah. So we sold a lot of that book, so that's great that won. I think we're gonna probably end up selling a few more.
She also won for what was it? It was down here.
I'm gonna pop through some of the big winners on this list. Okay. And Kevin, you had some specific question about this. The best single issue or one shot was the Our Favorite Thing is My Favorite Thing is Monsters Free Comic Book Day book from 2019.
This is not even worth airtime on. That was listed as a Free Comic Book Day 2020 release, obviously by mistake.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that it won an Eisner, I was like, wow, that is some crooked voting, because that thing's been out, a month?
Yeah, no, and it wouldn't even have been eligible, right? It's only 2019 product. So, it was the 2019 issue. So it was my favorite thing is Monsters. It was like a kind of little one-off like compilation and some new material from there. Bitterroot by David Walker, Chuck Brown, and Stanford Green for best continuing series from Image. This one actually is one that I read the first issue and I thought was really interesting. So now that it finished up, I want to read the whole thing. Is Little Bird by Darcy Van Polgeest, I think that's how I pronounce the last name, and Ian Bertram. Little Bird by Image Comics. That was really unique. I thought the artwork on that was incredible.
Yeah, and you know what's cool about that is the rep, the Ian Bertram's art rep. Mm-hmm. When Ian Bertram takes commissions from that through that art rep, they are quote unquote artist choice commissions, and so you just commit to, I want an Ian Bertram piece, and you have no idea what you're going to get.
Okay.
And if anybody has seen the art in Little Bird, you'll know.
Yeah, it's
like when you open that package, that could be a mind blower.
It reminds me a little bit of God, hold on, let me grab it. It reminds me a little bit of gonna forget his name. James Stocco. A little bit similar, like just that hyper detail, just real crazy art. I really like that. Jubal Wilson and Christian Ward's Invisible Kingdom from Dark Horse won Best New Series. Guts by Raina Telgemeier for Best Publication for Kids. No real surprise there. They Call Us Enemy by George Takei for a Best Reality-Based Work, and that's a big seller for us. We've sold a lot of that. Snowglass Apple by Neil Gaiman and Colleen Doran for Best Adaptation from Another Medium. So that's another one of those Dark Horse Neil Gaiman collections that they did. I don't know. What else? Anything else big up here? Mariko Tamaki's Breaking Glass for Best Writer. So she won for
that. Was
that.
What I was looking for.
Oh, that's what you're looking for. Yeah. And she won for that, and Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. So yeah, big hopes for a Wonder Woman run. I'm really excited for that. Hope
isn't this, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't this the year of no big two winners?
Yeah,
no. Harley Quinn Breaking Glass is Best Writer, but she's getting it for that and Laura Dean.
Yeah.
A specific title from the big two.
Yeah, no Marvel or DC book one. I mean, what'd you call Tom King last year, Toby?
Taylor Swift, baby.
Taylor Swift, yeah. It's interesting. Marvel rarely gets any nominations in the Eisners. DC usually gets quite a few. I don't know what that says. I wonder if the Black Label stuff for 2020 may get some nods. I could see the question getting
that one's really good.
Maybe
Dead Earth is good.
Or Dead Earth. I could see some of those getting the nods. When I went through, now the Eisners tend to be more outside of my wheelhouse usually, but I usually can find some stuff in there that I think is interesting. When I saw the nominees for this year, though, I kind of went, well, okay, like, it's fine, whatever. The Eisners, it's not Ryan's favorite comic award. It's it's
Grant Morrison, Jeff Johns, Tom King. What?
Yeah, I mean that's not what it is. So which is fine. Like, this is neat stuff, and there's a couple of these books that absolutely deserve it. But yeah, it's the Eisners have always been outside of the mainstream publication, but usually DC gets a couple in there. Even Image didn't really have too much this year. Really very, very few titles. Is that it? Oh, I think a best cover artist for Emma Rios for Pretty Deadly. Did an issue of Pretty Deadly come out in 2019?
Could have.
I don't even.
Do we even carry it?
I get some for subs. We haven't really carried that in a long time. Something must have come out, I guess, if it's nominated.
Well, I got best coloring with Dave Stewart. Gideon Falls is on there.
Yeah, so yeah,
and Silver Surfer, Black Spider-Man. Hey,
Image won a couple. So,
Silver Surfer, Black, and Spider-Man.
And yeah.
Sorry.
But the others are always interesting because they have some neat. They have some neat stuff on there. It's always worth kind of taking a look at what won, and if you're like me, a bit of a big 2 guy, sometimes it's or a big 1 guy, sometimes it's easier to overlook a lot of the stuff. So you should. Yeah.
Well, it's always good to see who won, because then you oh, maybe I need to make sure to have a couple of these copies at the shop for potential.
And most of these are not surprises. They all make sense not only as winners, but as books that we've carried and books that have sold and have got good press. So it's not like some weird. Most of these are I've heard of, but I tend to be outside my wheelhouse of the stuff I normally read. Before we get to some questions, we have a few more news stories here I want to talk about, and one is there's a very interesting book coming up from Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw called Crossover. It was one of the books that got announced at. Oh, yeah. By the way, Comic-Con. Yeah, there's nothing to talk about.
Was there anything?
Kevin Sharp, who watched nearly every Comic-Con panel.
Right. Yeah. No, because I wasn't getting paid for any of them this year, so I think I watched 3, maybe 4.
I thought you said you watched a bunch of them.
What are you talking about, dude? We just had this conversation 3 days ago. He
has the memory of a gnat.
I said I could count on one hand with fingers left over how many I watched.
I completely heard something totally different in that conversation.
I guess so. I think as of today, I've watched 5. As of today.
I'm pretty sure I've watched 6, and none of them were comic related.
Leanne texted me and I was talking about Dark, and I was like, yeah, I recommended it on Podcast Viewer. And she goes, Ryan knows nothing of that.
Yeah. I have no recollection of you talking about Dark.
Ever. Yeah, he talked about it at length. We should watch Dark.
I probably, honestly, Toby, I probably intentionally stopped listening because I did want to see it. I just didn't want to know anything about it. So
intentionally don't listen when I start talking in general. So
that's true too.
Yeah.
Dark is
anyway, Comic-Con.
Yeah. What I heard was I have a job where I do nothing for 8 hours, so all I did was watch every Comic-Con panel. That's the conversation that I heard. Did you not say that?
So that sentence is half right. And the part where you lose me is where all I did was watch. That's the last accurate part of what you just said.
Okay. Charlie, I do want to hear about the Red Dwarf panel, but Comic-Con,
it was rough.
It was rough. I watched a couple, and there was just nothing.
The problem is, before Charlie jumps in with more detail, that I think he may agree with this. For those who have been to those panels, actually, it's hard because they're pre-recorded. There's no audience interaction. it's a bunch of heads on like Brady Bunch squares on the screen. There's no interaction really with the panelists because they're not all sitting at a big table.
And that's fine. When I turn into a DC Comics panel or a Marvel Comics panel, I don't want them to. I don't want to hear like these vague discussions of, "Whoa, tell us how hard it is to write a comic book." Like I was just like, "Let's get to the fucking meat here, guys! Like announce something, tell us something." It was just like the most generic. Like it's funny because on the beat they had their take was like, "Oh well, the He-Man panel, the He-Man fandom panel had like 2,400 views. That's 10 times as many people that go to that panel room." It's like, yeah, but it's on the internet and literally anyone can watch this. And you only got 2,400 people to watch a Comic-Con live stream panel?
Yeah, because these people are trying to track down those He-Man toys at the con, and the ones that would watch it aren't even there because they can't afford it. So, of course, there's nobody at these panels.
No, what I meant was, like, it just doesn't translate. And so that means New York Comic Con must be shitting their pants right now because unless they have stuff set up, like the biggest news from the weekend was Zack Snyder dropping the black costume Superman.
And that wasn't Comic Con.
No, right? That was the other thing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was at Justice Con, wasn't it?
It was like this fan-made Snyder Cut con where he came in and dropped a 10-second trailer or 10-second video of black costume Superman, and people were like, "That's the biggest news of the weekend." Oh, it's so funny. Anyway,
but it's
right. He admitted that wasn't filmed that way. It was actually the colored costume that they colored black in post.
Oh, was it?
I thought that's what he admitted to. Am I wrong?
Oh, I only saw the little clip. I didn't watch the whole this whole thing.
After decency, you watch a little bit of Zack Snyder.
Ryan's just ready for 2021 to be here so he can watch the Snyder Cut. That's all he cares about. He's like, until it's done, he doesn't care.
I'm ready.
I'm still just wondering if it's going to be early 21 or late 21.
Late.
Yeah. But no, I mean,
so 2022?
Some things I feel like honestly transition just fine to sort of these videos. Like the He-Man fan panel, I would not blame them for just doing a online version of that every year because it does get more eyeballs on it. And honestly, that's not a highlight panel for most people at the con.
Yeah.
Like there's always more panels and concurrent things going on, and it outgrew the con itself. Moving some of that stuff to other formats makes a lot of sense, actually. All that being said, though, all I really cared to watch was like the end of the Star Trek panel for the Picard cast, and I watched the Constantine panel because it happened to play on YouTube after something else I watched. And I watched the Bill and Ted 3 panel, and I watched the Evening with Kevin Smith. That was pretty bad, actually.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, because it's just him. It's just him talking to the camera.
It felt like some big, like, let me talk about the movie I did, and let me talk about this that I'm doing, and like it was one long, like, Kevin Smith not interacting with anybody, therefore it came across almost as like an infomercial.
Yeah.
But that being said, flip that around to like the Nathan Fillion spotlight panel, which I had on in the background today, and that was really weirdly edited, but because it was Nathan Fillion interacting with Joss Whedon and Alan Tudyk and Gina Torres and like all these people from his career, it was a much more interesting sort of view that way.
Yeah.
So it sort of depends on how the stuff was set up and how it was done. Like the Bill and Ted panel was fun, but it's because you have 6 or 7 people there all talking about their experiences, and what one person says sparks something for somebody else to add, and like that kind of stuff. So.
Well, at least as far as, we know everything for DC is going to be at Fandom, and clearly this obviously, hopefully, has them looking at their paneling and their style of. This was like a big test, right?
To announce
At Fandom, They will. They should have a lot of stuff to announce, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. I don't think they do it. I don't think they'd do it if they didn't have anything to announce.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for New York Comic Con, less is more. We don't need 5 days of paneling when you don't have 1 day of paneling. Really, like sorry, He-Man fan panel, but you're just that we don't. I know what Comic Con was trying to do. I just don't think they needed that.
So
get the couple big things.
So I think where this virtual Comic Con really suffered is one, we all knew there wasn't going to be any real comic announcements, especially because anything would have gotten leaked far before the con anyways. They also couldn't necessarily bring anything that they wanted to share with us. Like typically when it comes to Comic Con, even like the comics panels, they bring some like cover art and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But sometimes that's very like, we're going to give you the first view of this only to the people in this room. And yes, people do the crappy leaked footage, but I don't feel like there was as much of like, you don't have exclusive scenes for this or anything like that. Because
none of that, right? Yeah.
This was all staying up forever. This was not really being released to a limited audience. It's not giving people a return on the investment of going to the con even.
Well, they showed like the first.
But that being said, I like the idea of a virtual Comic Con like this where it gives them the opportunity to group together a bunch of this, because since COVID and lockdowns and that kind of stuff, there has been a huge surge between like reunited apart panels and like all this other like this kind of content is being generated constantly right now. Script reads from community, script reads from it's constant. And this gives them a way to sort of organize all this stuff around a singular event. Yeah, because a lot of what you saw at this was exactly the kind of stuff that's being generated anyways, but in this way, it was a 2-day event of releasing all this content.
No, I agree, but I think, well, it was a 5-day event. I mean, they had stuff on Wednesday. It was basically Comic-Con's timeline. It just, I really wish they had got someone to go in and just been like, and we're going to drop the big announcement. We're going to drop the real big news of this panel. We're going to really blow out something. Every day they needed like that one big panel. There was never going to be a Hall H panel here. Like we knew that, but they needed something.
Well, the first few minutes, you see it in the in the E3, right? Each console company brings their kind of big announcement with them, and they drop it on everybody, right? Like they make a big deal of it. Usually. Like you said, yeah.
But the whole idea here, right? And using E3 as a perfect example, E3 is basically dead, right? I mean, they don't need E3 anymore, and Marvel and DC and these movie companies don't need Comic-Con. That's what makes this stand out so much. As it's different when you're in person because you can get those people, but like you didn't have a Nintendo section of Comic-Con streaming stuff because they don't need that, right?
Well, my other note would be you need to do them live.
Yeah.
And you have a moderator on camera moderating the talk, but then you have a moderator moderating the question queue for fans and feeding the questions in. So it's just not a bunch of random YouTube yahoos like throwing in all these idiotic comments. You have somebody curating the questions. Now, that doesn't mean you have to show it live while it's happening, but you have to record it live, I think.
Yeah, and so I'm going to just keep bringing everything back to Red Dwarf because everything should come back to Red Dwarf. But so the Red Dwarf panel was just like all these other panels and stuff for the con. But one of the things Red Dwarf has been doing since this lockdown is they have been recording like not quite episode commentaries because they tend to run longer than the episodes, but like the various production people behind some of the episodes, including Rob Grant, who doesn't really do New Dwarf, but he's been getting together with these people for like Old Dwarf, have been doing like these live commentaries. I don't remember if it's on Zoom or whatnot, but they have like a sign up queue that lets in a certain amount of people. Once all the spots are taken, that's it. So you kind of have that live audience feel where it's not endless. So you can control the bandwidth usage and all of that a little bit more that way too. And these kind of panels needed that. They needed some semblance of a sign up for panels, the first number of people who make it in, and schedule these recordings in some concurrent fashion so it's not always the same audience in all the different panels. But yeah, if they had done that, if they had done something like that where at least a good chunk of the more interesting panels had that live audience at the time of the recording at a particular time and then got released to YouTube after the live recording, it would have been a much different experience for people.
Yeah, I guess there was the Boys season 3 announcement of getting picked up. You know, which is cool, but
but
not. Yeah.
The amount of these kind of shows that get picked up for the next season before the previous season airs doesn't feel like a notable announcement or a notable enough announcement.
And I think we have to go back to every Comic-Con panel or every Comic-Con episode we've done over the last 10 years or whatever, where I say the same thing. Yeah, that was cool, but I kind of thought there'd be more announcements. I kind of thought there'd be more stuff. This just is the way comic conventions are now. They don't have a lot of announcements. Like the Hall H stuff is the big announcement at Comic-Con every year. And without it, it feels much smaller. Mm. Marvel didn't announce like 7 movies this year, you know? They probably never will again because they have their own convention. They have D23. They don't need to do that.
Oh, no, and I agree with you there. I think the days of needing Comic-Con as a huge promotion tool is kind of over. And, I mean, I would say a lot of times what comes out of Hall H nowadays are we drop these X amount of movie trailers. The people at the con got to see an additional scene or extended trailer, but you still see, like, the amount of buzz that's typically generated around Comic-Con, being there and not being there is about equal. It's always like, this trailer dropped today because the panel's going on right now. And
yeah.
Well,
I don't really feel like we had that.
For me, I didn't really watch any of the panels, but I did jump on the word balloon where they kind of just had creators coming in and talking like the after party kind of thing. And that was really great to watch creators just kind of go back and forth and talk about their experiences at Comic-Con and the stories and all that stuff. You know, like we do with Toby, right, every year. Is he still here?
Yeah. The Comic-Con stories are the fun part of Comic-Con. Well, that was actually a big thing during all of this is there was a lot of creators online that said, yeah, the BarCon needs to kind of stop and not be the reason people go to Comic-Con, you know, which doesn't always work. A lot of people like that. A lot of people are there for the hangout and the meet and greet and stuff, you know, and talking with meeting their friends and coworkers and stuff. But, you know,
because for a lot of creators, this is the first chance they get. This is the only chance they get to see people. Yeah. Right. Like if Nicola Scott comes out from Australia, Tom Taylor comes out from Australia, right, to this Comic-Con specifically. So it's the only time they're going to see their other creators that they work with. So it's, you know, you got something to say, Kevin? Because you got this snarky smile on your face. That's just
it's not snarky. It's
Kevin knows all about BarCon.
Yeah. It's more rueful than snarky.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think they, people would be very happy to get back to a real comic convention, but fandom. You know, we saw what probably. Now I want to say again. I'm not going to say like it sucked. The stuff I watched was fine. I watched a couple panels and it was like okay, nothing else really interested me, but
it just honestly made me sad.
We needed, and so fandom and what's Reed Pop's doing something.
Yeah,
it got announced today, like Multiverse. It's another big digital convention. These people got a lot of. They really gotta crank it up a few notches from.
Reed Pop is going to go an entire calendar year with zero revenue.
Yeah,
and I know if some people are going to say, "Oh, boo-hoo, poor Reed Pop," but you know, it's not like you could just keep your business endlessly running with no...
Right. Well, you know, Google announced that people can work from home through June 2021, right?
Yeah, and they want us educators to go back to work next month.
You're not going back. There's not going to be C2E2 next year. There's not going to be a WonderCon next year. There probably won't be a Comic-Con next year. There's not going to be there's no football or basketball or baseball or in any real capacity. I mean, it's just not going to happen. No time soon. So all of these big events, concerts. Oh yeah, all my concerts got rescheduled for like March 2021. Those aren't going to happen either.
Just be glad you don't own a movie theater.
Yeah, well,
or a chain of movie theaters, even worse.
What was it? Universal's now going to put their movies out digitally. Is it 2 weeks?
17 days. 17 days.
So like the following Monday, probably right after that Friday release.
Well,
so they're going to start opening up internationally, and then they're just like, "Fuck it, we'll just drop it digitally." And that is their correct decision because they're not going to get America's market. They're just not. There's no one here. We can't see movies.
You were saying that they were you were trying to say earlier that New Mutants, they've played the first 2 minutes of the film, right?
Yeah.
August 28th, and I'm like, bullshit. That's coming out in theaters August 28th.
No, it's going to come out in various UK or various European countries on August 28th, and then mid-September it'll be out digitally here. That's an only option. It's not going to come out here in theaters. There's no way.
So Wonder Woman, when are we going to see that movie?
It's not in October.
So the bet, Kevin.
I mean, it could be.
No, hold on.
Wait, did I make a bet?
No, there's going to be a bet.
Oh.
The Wonder Woman variant covers, do they happen in 2020?
So do you know about this? They've now canceled the covers that are supposed to be out for Wonder Woman 84, the tie-in variant covers. They're now on their 4th solicitation, and they ain't coming out in October either.
So I would say if you had to rank the people who are just gritting their teeth and tightening their sphincter right now, you'd start with Warner Brothers, and then Raffi would be number 2 on the list because that movie was done in 2019.
Yeah,
that was ready to come out, and it got bumped to summer 2020.
For the bigger release.
It was done.
Bigger release. Yeah,
and they're probably now like, God.
And even before the COVID stuff started, I remember reading an article where like Patty Jenkins was like, I regret pushing that back.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, it's going to be an interesting world because with the thousands of dollars of cost to lease or rent the space for a large movie theater, let alone a chain of movie theaters, it's not like you just throw a sheet over the furniture and say, okay, we'll see you in a year. Mm-hmm. Like that's not going to happen. Like think about your store as just an example on a small scale, single location. Now imagine you've got 30 of those stores and Diamond is shut down.
Well, like what do they pay? What do they pay rent move for on a movie theater? $250,000 a month or something like that? Like at a mall? Like easy.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what you do.
Right.
I mean, a mall's an interesting case just because the mall rent would be tied to the mall being open. If the malls, I mean, obviously they did open up some stuff for like indoor shopping and such, but then various other things started to shut down. I guess I'm curious to know how potential forgiveness of that rent is in a mall where you're basically paying for a certain amount of foot traffic that the mall is no longer delivering.
Yeah.
Well, it's the government needs to forgive closed businesses, whether they're owned or leased. They need to forgive the property tax on that. The property tax, and then the people that own those buildings need to get subsidized some portion of that from federally government money because they can't collect rent on those people. Those places can't open, they can't make money. Like this. There's a block here, and it's the property tax, and it's the end result here that they need to get that freed up, and then they cannot charge rent, and then they cannot worry about being open, and until that's taken care of, it's not going to happen. So, like, there's a couple places in the complex that we're in that have just been closed this entire time. There's a little salon 2 doors down from us. Like, the hell are they going to do? Like, they haven't. I mean,
well,
maybe
I think they opened briefly.
They had somebody. They had a table outside. They had a tent out on the sidewalk and tables like with the
nice.
Yeah, and that's gonna get them maybe $50.
Yeah,
right.
like
a day. Like, you can't use the machines for, men's haircuts are nothing. It's manicures, pedicures, the bigger treatment stuff. They're not dragging that shit outside every day. Like, yeah, I mean, if the landlords are like, "Yep, we're fine with everyone going bankrupt and going out of business, we don't care," then I guess. But
I'm glad we left Comicsgate for a cheerier topic.
Yeah.
So
I do want to talk about something.
We can move on. What are we moving on to?
The final topic here. Well, we got two little topics. There are two upcoming books. One we know almost nothing about, but the other one we're doing a little bit more about. Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw. That's how this all started. One of the announcements from Comic-Con is a book called Crossover.
Now, the funny part is it's the first part of the line. As part of the online edition Comic-Con International, you're like, oh yeah, we have to talk about that. That's how we segued.
So it's about the multiverse of a comic book crossover breaks into the real world and the devastating effects that arise. And it's not really the first time this has been done. I mean, comic books sort of filtering into the real world is my favorite character of all time. Superboy Prime is exactly part of this.
Totally giving me 1985 flashbacks.
It's all these.
Did you guys read God Country?
I didn't
same creative.
It's good. It's very good. There's my random pick of the week is the first God Country trade. See, I worked it in. Boom.
Nice.
I don't have a mic to drop.
Says, is it still cool to walk down the street in a Superman t-shirt in a world like that? Now, this is the one thing this is where it caught my eye. The book's called Crossover for a reason, says Cates, revealing that the main character is a direct mark comic book retailer, and that issue 6 will hold what he calls a historic comic book sequence related to that idea. Beyond its one-of-a-kind concept, Crossover apparently necessitated the creation of some brand new visual ideas, thing Cates says he hasn't seen in a comic book before, to show the interaction of multiple realities in a striking way. So, okay.
Did you see the preview pages?
No, I didn't. I just saw the article.
It's an interesting mix of, describing art is the most boring thing in the world, but it's just, to sum up, it's a mix of, it has like the 4-color newsprint look mixed in on the panel with more modern looking art, sharing panels.
And that's again, we've seen that before, but I like that. I love that when they mix. I think Morrison's done that with like the kind of the Hall of Heroes idea, where you get all the different multiverse characters getting together. And
after reading this, I was like, yeah, cool. I'll check this out.
Will Crossover number 6 be the first appearance of comic book retailer Ryan Higgins in comic books?
No.
Maybe.
No.
We'll see.
I thought he was killed in Multiversity.
Over and over again.
On Earth H.
Final, we have a tease here. It was in the
comic book, right?
What was that?
Lane is in one of the books.
Which one?
One of the Dustin ones.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, our friend Lane. Yeah. I remember James Sim up at Isotope. He's been in a couple, I think. But he was in
he's been in a few, I think, isn't he?
An issue of Detective? Doesn't he get killed?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's like a corpse. Like he's like a murder victim or something like that. And I think he was in Invincible too. I can't remember that. Maybe they'll get James to play him if they put him on the cartoon. But we have one last thing, and we'll get to some Patreon questions and a couple Twitter questions. Endless Winter is going to be something coming from DC December 2020. This was in the current. It was a full page in the current DC solicitations. So we'll see what this is in the next, not next catalog, but the catalog after. So
Fandom, right?
Oh, yeah, it could be. Yeah. They could announce this there. That could be one of their big comic announcements. So December would be too early for post Death Metal. So this might be something else. We'll find out. I'm always curious for a big crossover. I like those. Hey, maybe they're crossing over with that crossover book by Donny Cates.
Too many crossovers.
A couple questions.
That would be really weird right now.
It's the non-Marvel DC crossover. A couple questions from Patreon and a couple questions on Twitter. We'll get to these. Verum Libertas asks the saddest of all questions. This may have been mentioned before,
Oh, geez.
but are sales charts now a thing of the past? I don't know. DC has not, or Diamond has not released a sales chart since that kind of limited one that they did prior to the shutdown. For the March one prior to the shutdown. With the DC out, I mean, it's harder to do. I would love to see an independent third party really try to put these numbers together. I don't know if Lunar and UCS are going to put out numbers. I don't know if DC is going to put out numbers themselves. I would think sales charts are over, and it really makes me sad. I love sales charts. We'll have BookScan every year at least for graphic novels, but again, that will take out comic book sales.
We could do our sales charts.
We could. I would love to do our sales charts. The problem is, and I've talked to them about this, Comic Hub does not combine variant covers. So when we do our end of year numbers, I have okay, well, here are the books, but it doesn't include the variants into it.
Yeah.
So when you have something like Death Metal with 6 covers, those should be compressed to one number, and they're not. And that unfortunately makes it not really work when I'm trying to pull sales charts. So if I had a better way of doing it, I would. Alex says, if you were stuck on an island with a superhero, but they didn't have their powers or gadgets, who would you want to be stuck with? No powers, no gadgets. You just want to hang out with a superhero on a deserted island.
Can I get 2?
Who do you want to hang out with? Sure.
Because it's blue and gold, baby. I'd hang out with blue and gold.
Okay. They seem fun.
Oh, yeah.
Who would I want to hang out with that doesn't have their powers?
I think not answering this with some female hero is deluding ourselves. Let's just be candid.
But Green Arrow doesn't have any powers. He can't have their gadgets, but Green Arrow can just make a bow.
That was his origin, his original origin.
Right. So
shipwrecked.
Does he lose his ability to create and use a bow? See, because Batman may have no gadgets, but he's still Batman. He could still make shit. Unless it's just one of those islands with just the one palm tree and the one coconut tree and nothing else. It's 10 feet wide. Then maybe he can really do much.
It sounds to me like this is a question of, do you want to respect the spirit of the question being asked, or to make up your own rules?
Charlie, as someone with a very long history of playing Dungeons & Dragons and other role-playing games, you know the answer to this question is you do not respect the spirit of it. You try to break it as much as possible and min-max the hell out of it.
Okay, I can't argue with that. You are right. That is the spirit of every role-playing game I've played.
We're still waiting for everybody's picks.
Okay, I'll take one for the team. Fine. Power Girl.
No, there you go. We can move on to the next question. I'll say Grinnell. Zach says, what are your thoughts on Empire so far? What about Marvel's output in general? Well, I can comment on their output in general. It hasn't been much, but they're finally starting to crank up a little bit. Empire, I'm just behind on. Avengers and FF, I fell back on, but I'm actually reading the last couple of issues of Fantastic Four right now, catching up to Empire, where it starts. I'm going to jump on Avengers next, because I've heard Empire is pretty good. It's heard it's a fun crossover so far, and I do like to try to read this stuff in order. So Avengers, I was a little shaky on prior to the shutdown. I like Jason Aaron, but I felt this Avengers is a little, I don't know. I just wasn't into it. But I'm gonna catch up before I get to Empire. So
Empire number 1 was very good. Empire number 2 was fine. That's all that's out so far, right? Those 2?
3's out this week.
And the Emperor Hulkling one-shot was actually very good, despite the bait and switch on that freaking cover. But the issue itself was very good.
Yep. Yeah, I haven't...
That was a Zdarsky. I think he co-wrote it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I do want to get to Empire, because I caught up on most of the X-Men books during the shutdown, so I'm right up to where they just started back, so I'm only the one issue back. On the ones that have come out so far. FF Avengers and Spider-Man, those little families, I kind of put to the side to catch up on X-Men. So now I'm burning through those to try to get caught up on them. Slots FF has been all right. I feel like it's a little bit of a greatest hits that doesn't quite it's like a greatest hits cover. Like I want that. I want something a little bit meatier out of that FF run. And like I said, Avengers, I don't care for Ghost Rider on that team. I don't care for. They kept going back to the what are they the Red Guard, not Red Guardian. They had all the Russian army, the super Captain America guys earlier. The bear and talking about the big giant bear guy. Yeah, what the hell is it? What the something? I forget what the team is called. They kept using those guys. I care about those guys. What the hell? They had like a celestial head. Like, is that their base? What? What are you doing?
Wasn't that from that? Wasn't what big issue was that with the celestial head?
Yeah,
it was one of those giant Marvel like 100.
Was that Incoming or
no?
Point
Was it
One or?
Although Incoming, I think we were talking about this, Ryan. Finally, when did that thing come out? Was that 2020? No,
no.
It's like a year ago.
Last year. Yeah.
Incoming is finally paying off in Empire. Finally.
Yeah, well, they had that backup with one of those last stories was the Hulkling.
Isn't it just Soviet super soldiers?
Well, whatever they're called. They have a name. I don't
know. Winter Guard.
Winter Guard. There you go.
Yeah, because you're talking about who's in it?
Yeah, whatever the bear's name is.
Crimson Dynamo, Dark Star, Red Guardian, Ursa Major.
Ursa Major. There you go. He's the big bear. Yeah, they're fine. Like whatever. Josh says, I'm sitting here struggling on how to store these oversized Black Label comics. Well, all you got to do for those is get a magazine box. They fit in a standard magazine box. Just like your comic book box or your long box or
standard
short box.
Magazine bag and board.
I actually have all my Black Label books on a shelf right now because I need to move them over to my to a magazine box.
So I've started putting like omnibuses and stuff that I had excess of into the CGC grade like comic boxes. Like those fit very well in those.
Are they? I don't know if those are wide enough for the Black Label books. I don't know, but because CGC is wider.
I have one. I mean, they seem to be about the same size as an omnibus, so I think they would fit in there.
Maybe. I feel like they're a little bit wider. Yes, what are your favorites, though, so far? Mine are Killer Smile, Joker, Harley, Criminal Sanity, and the best one, Wonder Woman, Dead Earth. I am really bad and have only read the question one so far. I've got most of them, and I've kind of just been waiting for them to wrap up before I give them a read. But the question, I said I was going to read that when it came out. So
yeah. So I've been reading the question one. I, of course, read Damned when it came out. Mm-hmm. I've read the first issue of Dead Earth, and that was really good.
Yeah.
But no, I'm a bit behind on some of them. And especially now that more of them have come out in hardcover, I'm starting to get caught up.
So yeah, I think it's easier when because they're all just these self-contained, out of continuity miniseries. So I think it's just so much easier to just read them when they're all done. So
yeah, I've read all of the oversized ones. And I think
because like Joker Harley is way delayed.
Yeah, Joker Criminal Sanity is way delayed, but it's real good. Like
yeah. I'm just gonna wait till
Tammy Garcia has done a fantastic job on that one. Jeff Lemire's Joker Killer Smile is fantastic. The Question, I think, is just probably one of those the books that kind of The Question and Dead Earth. I think the two books that just really resonate as these are Black Label books.
Yeah,
right. Like Batman Damned, yeah, it was all right. Harleen was good. I mean, it's just, the Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey is just continuing Jimmy Connor's Harley run.
Yeah.
I agree about Dead Earth. Really kind of works for me as a Black Label title. Like The Question, and I mean, you can disagree if you want on this. I kind of feel like The Question book just feels like a good classic style question story. Like it doesn't necessarily like this could have been published under DC at one point. It could have been published under Vertigo at one point.
No,
it could have been,
I agree.
Like Dead Earth feels like something else to me. Same with like Harleen and some of these other ones. They feel different. They don't feel like they could have just
they
don't
a little
feel
more.
Like they were just put into the Black Label because that's where they wanted to shove them right now.
they may have when DC was doing all those original graphic novels back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like I could see Dead Earth being part of that or part of their Elseworld stories, but as far as modern, what they've done recently with these ideas, I think Dead Earth, fits the Black Label branding fits that a lot better than if it was just like a regular DC miniseries. It'd be like, oh, it's kind of odd, but this kind of specialty series makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why, like, I kind of find the three Jokers being part of Black Label a bit odd, just because of that same kind of thing. It just feels like it might give a little more freedom for the book, but it doesn't feel like it was originally intended for that label. It's just where it's getting dropped now.
Well, you have Strange Adventures, this Black Label. You had the tail end of Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo's Batman that ended up in Black Label.
Which, again, just, it doesn't feel like it
needed,
Yeah, it just felt like that's where they decided to put that book. It doesn't feel like that book was designed for Black Label.
It just lets them crank up that swearing volume to an F-bomb or a half nude shot or a ass shot on a guy or something like that. Like they're not. It does let them change up the book to be a little bit more mature than what it would be if it was just a standard DC book. And it fits to me. Like last night did not need to be. I don't know why that was Black Label. That did not need to be Black Label at all.
Well,
I don't think anything
Sean
in
Murphy's, White Knight and Curse of the White Knight.
They swear in that, and I think that fits. Yeah,
but it's like, does it?
It's its own thing.
That's
the different. Well, that's why they do it. It's the differentiating factor is that Black Label allows them to do that stuff where they wouldn't have done it in a regular DC.
I guess the odd thing is I feel like Black Label's become a place to just shove any mini series that doesn't fit in the young adult space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
And
well, they want these long form or these short form but long term seller titles. I don't know how it's working out for them. Hopefully, it's doing okay. But
I guess what I'm saying is, in terms of what it felt like Black Label's original pitch was, stuff like Dead Earth fits better to the original pitch rather than just this is where we put anything that's not continuity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Next question.
Final question on Patreon. This is from Craig Anderson. He says, Hulkling is a pretty C-list character to headline a major crossover. Which C-list DC villain would you like to see at the center of a major crossover?
Kite Man.
Hell yeah. Hulkling is not a villain, no? Hulkling's
spoiler.
Is he a villain now? He's a hero prior, but
he's not yet a villain of this series.
Right.
And that's not really a spoiler.
Yeah. He was like leading the armies of the Kree, so.
And he's united the two empires.
Scrolls. Yeah. DC villain. I like those Underworld. The Underworld Unleashed, those that where they kind of cranked up the power levels of all those DC villains, and not the big guys, like the little guys. I could see something like that again, where all the little guys kind of get amped up a little bit, but specific C-list villain. Oh man, one of my favorite parts of Crisis is the what's his name? Guy with the mask.
Psycho Pirate.
Thank you. I love Psycho Pirate, and that is a Z-list villain.
But like Psycho Pirate, he's come into things now, like the
post-Crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah, he became way more important.
I don't know where the line is between A, B, and C anymore. So, Craig, I'm going to say Kanjar Ro.
Oh, that'd be cool. I like Kanjar Ro.
So, I feel like, especially when you look at some of these events, in DC, they are very good about we need a villain for early in the event to be sort of the figurehead so we can reveal the bigger bad later on. It's sort of like the way you get Black Hand to Necron, the way you get Pariah, and like a lot of these sort of events are based on we're going to turn Hawk into a villain, but it's really Hal Parallax behind it. We're going to turn, you always need that C-list or hero or villain who can step into the big bad shoes for the beginning of the event, and then reveal there's a bigger bad behind them.
Oh, people always love it when the big villain's revealed later. That is like somewhat disconnected from the main character at the beginning.
Yeah.
Kevin loves that.
I love it. I was just trying to think of, because his thing was, who would you want at the center of an event, right? So I was trying to think of villains where it could play. It's not just like a thug. It's somebody who, because my other choice would be Felix Faust. Is that character still in continuity?
Yeah,
I think he popped up in Justice League Dark.
Up in Justice League Dark.
Yeah,
because a good example of this in Final Crisis was Libra as the villain.
Yeah, that was
totally out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Speaking of C, that's more like D-list.
Yeah. I don't know. Who'd be a good villain? That's a tough one. No. I could think like there are some. You want to think like I could do good with B. I could do good with like the guys right below the big guys.
Craig will forget. Remember, it's about the spirit of the question, Ryan. Just say dark side. There.
Dark side. Yeah. That nobody dark side. Yeah, I don't know. Let me keep thinking. I'll come up with someone.
Craig's going to be flattered it took you this long to answer his question.
Well, I don't know. It's tough. I don't know, like a real minor villain that would like. I'm trying to think of what would work to be like the catalyst for a big event. I mean, that's the problem. I think you could do it with anything, right? And it's just what's your favorite C-list villain now?
I was trying to think of like somebody cosmic or someone magic.
Yeah, with more powers. It's fucking like Condiment King's not going to do anything. So I do like Condiment King though. Condiment King is my answer. There we go. the great fast food wars caused by the Condiment King. Got a couple questions on Twitter. Let's get to some of this. Steven asks, as someone who has been reading comics for almost a decade, can someone explain why variant covers are a thing? I want the main cover, and I'm always disappointed when a book is sold out and I have to buy the variant. And I certainly don't understand paying more for a variant. But I'm happy for all the comic shop owners who make money off of it. I just personally don't understand paying more for mass-produced, but sometimes lower print run cover art, when all I really care about is the internal story and art. Would love to hear the group's thoughts. Toby.
I like art.
I mean, that really is the answer, right?
Yeah. I mean, it could be a print of the same thing. It doesn't matter that it's on a comic book. I just like it.
It is funny going back even through comics from like 09, 10, like really pre like 2011. Variant covers really exploded in the last 10 years. People say like, oh, it's like the 90s. No, it was never like this in the 90s. The vast, vast majority of comics in the 90s had one cover and one cover only.
Yeah, I think the reason why... Yeah, I was going to say, I think when people really were starting to compare to the 90s was when DC was doing the hologram covers and the metal covers and that is when it was really feeling like the 90s, because you used to have every issue had a collector's item at the top of it. And
Well, just remember that Eclipso book with the diamond on it.
I got to. I love that book. For me, variant covers, it's a way to differentiate the reader, or the buyer, I should say, because I think readers prefer, generally, the main cover. Collectors and art people generally prefer the variant. And they found an interesting way to sell to two different audiences. Well, really three, if you count the art people and the collectors as two separate people. Because many of them want... Collectors and speculators want usually, actually, the first print, the main cover, because that is the actual cover of the comic. And so when there's a big first appearance, that's usually the one they want. So,
no, I'm just curious, in terms of sort of splitting the audience, as you said there, do you feel like the readers would care if the variant cover was the main cover?
No, I think most people would buy whatever, but this allows them to sell. Well, okay, so let's go down the road. Kevin, you are generally main cover. You will occasionally buy a variant, but you do not double dip.
No, I never double dip. But funny that this topic came up because I did look on eBay for that Hulkling, what I thought was the main cover, which turned out to be the 1 in 50.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, I'm out. My interest level is like, I would have paid $10 to get that. And my out. Like I saw some listed at $50 and $75. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. To go to the guy's question, that's a 1 in 50, right? It's not like it's a 1 in 50,000.
Well, but a 1 in 50, I mean, $50 to $100 is going to be the going price.
So
right?
And so this customer's out on that. I like the cover a lot, and I would have paid extra for it. But
now you're fine if you prefer the variant cover. You'll take the variant cover over the main cover. Consistency there doesn't bother you.
That's why I'm such an annoying customer with Strange Adventures, because I'm ordering it one by one when I see what both covers are.
Because actually, all 5 of us, we are a great blend of people because we all do very different things. Brock, you are always a cover. You are almost always a cover, but you will double dip for kind of the most of your more preferred series if you like the variant cover. If you don't like the variant cover, you don't take it.
Yeah.
But if you're collecting a series, you like that variant cover too.
Yeah. So like for me, Batman, both covers, right? Love the series. It's great.
Regardless,
right? Unless it's a really bad cover.
What about 20 who did those covers at the very beginning?
Tim Sale
covers.
I couldn't stand it. I only got like a handful of them and they were specifically if they had Catwoman. Mm-hmm. But like Action Comics right now, I completely and utterly despise John Romita Jr.'s art, so I don't get the main cover. I get the variant cover. And I'm like, yes, I'm paying $1 extra most of the time, but I'm like, I don't want John Romita Jr. art.
But Brock, you've got 22 pages of it inside.
I know, but at least
so you're paying an extra $1 so you don't have to look at his cover.
Yeah, exactly.
What? Like I would understand that. I would understand that if Romita Jr. was on the cover only and it was some other artist inside and you just didn't want the Romita Jr. cover, but you're paying them more to get a cover which you're going to flip open immediately and then be deluged with his art.
Yeah, but when you flip through the collection, you're not going to see that it's John Romita Jr. art, so you at least won't know how horrible it is when you flip through the collection.
Okay, moving on.
Charlie is no longer a single issue guy, but when he was...
most of the time I'm not a single issue guy.
Yeah.
I am almost purely I have no clue when this issue's coming out anymore, but there's a the Marvel comic issue has a Alex Ross X-Force cover coming out on one of the upcoming issues that I have no clue what's happened with that because of the pandemic. But when that cover actually comes out, I'll probably buy 2. But
well, and I was going to say, because I know your taste, you a little bit like Kevin, you rarely double dip. You're not going to get multiple covers, except in very rare situations. You will tend to grab whichever one you prefer.
And a lot of times those rare situations are, and even then I don't go crazy, but when you did like the Detective 1000 and the action and like that kind of stuff, a lot of times I'll look at all the different covers and be like, I really want these 2 covers because I like the time period and I like the artist. Yep. So I'm willing to kind of double dip on something like that. But again, that's surely at that point for the cover because the contents all end up in a omnibus or a hardcover down the road anyways.
Now, Toby is way more on the art collector side. So for him, the variant covers usually are the ones he's more interested in, although it tends to be he's interested in 1 in 100 variant covers that he's not going to shell out the money for. And this goes back to probably something that Steven doesn't understand. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but based on the conversation about the variant covers, Toby is the guy that'll buy 2 or 3 or 4 copies of a comic. If he's like, this is the greatest cover of the year, I'm going to buy like 5 copies. You don't do it as much as you used to, but you still do
when you
it.
back up and you have boxes and boxes of comic books. You try to smarten up, but sometimes strong enough for it. But if I like the cover, it might be a book I have never read before. I will buy it.
Yep.
Yeah. Now there's books I buy to read, and there's books I buy because of the character, and then there's books I literally buy for the cover.
And for you, something like Nightwing, you're going to want the main cover. It's fine. You're okay with it. And if you like the variant, you'll get that too.
Yeah, or I pick one between the two or something like that. But there's books I buy to read that are by writers. And then there's books like I forgot. There's some random DC book the other day I bought the cover because I really liked the cover. I forgot what it was. No, it was Marvel. It was like some blonde girl on the side of the tower, like climbing up. I don't even know what book that is. I have no idea. I like the angle, the way it's drawn. I thought it was fantastic. I bought it literally for the cover.
And now this is a big thing. Yeah, for people that are art collectors, the variant cover usually is going to be something that's a little bit more appealing or a little bit more different. And that's why a lot of the people that are big art guys or girls will buy those covers, regardless of what the book is. There's a reason they keep giving guys like Art Germ or Jim Lee and some of these was it Peach Momoko doing a lot of these covers now, just got signed on for a bunch more, and people really like that style. It doesn't matter what is in the book, right?
Well, I know
now, for me,
Catwoman 23, that variant went off the shelves like crazy.
Well, the whole issue did.
Yeah, I know, but like the variant, I think, is what a lot of people wanted.
Yeah. Now, I confuse the hell out of everyone because I'll do any variant cover regardless of what it is if it's for my favorite things. There are some times where I'm like, that cover's fucking awesome. Like, yeah, all those Archerm covers on Supergirl, of course I got them all because they're amazing covers. But I have to have the main cover. I have to have the main cover, don't care what it is. 100% the main cover. I will add the variant cover if I really like it. However, Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison, Legion of Superheroes, Young Justice, every cover. Don't care what it is, every cover. Don't care who the artist is, don't care what it's about. If it's a Jeff Johns comic, I own every cover. Doesn't matter who.
Have you tracked down and have an entire collection of the New 52 Justice League Jeff Johns covers?
I have the vast majority. There's a couple of those, like 1 in 200, like sketch covers early on that I don't have. They're on my list. They're just, I can't, I'm not going to pay like $150 for them on eBay. I just never will. But if I see them cheap, if I saw them for like 30 or $40, I'd probably pick them up. If someone's blowing them out to complete that. I have every single one of the digital copy.
The combo ones?
Of combo copies that I never opened and never redeemed the cover of. Why? Because it's a variant cover of a Jeff Johns comic. Therefore, I own it. Second prints, variant cover of a Jeff Johns comic. Therefore, I own it. I own every cover of Doomsday Clock. I will, because of who's doing it. Has nothing to do with the art. It's 100% of the writer in this case, which makes no sense. So,
and I have to, or let's put it this way: I feel the need to specify Ryan is crazy, but at least he's crazy to a point. When he's talking variant cover, he's not talking comic shop exclusive covers, con covers. Like there's an infinite amount of some things that
if I can get them, that's okay. Like I'm sure I'm going to look at that just as I'm a little fucked now that we're in the world of like store exclusive covers and stuff. Fortunately, they tend to be on books that I don't do this with. Like I'm good with like the metal covers. I like all the metal variant covers, but I don't need store exclusive covers for those. I don't need con covers for those. If I'm at a con, obviously that's not happening right now. Like when DC does those foil covers, I get those for some books, right? I think they're neat, but I don't need them. I love Tom King, but I did not start Batman with every variant cover, and I'm just not going to go down that path. But Strange Adventure, I absolutely get both because they're amazing covers.
And there are people out there who go out of their way to track down all the variant covers, and that's why I'm just saying when Ryan says all, he's not one of those people who has the 100 different covers for Batman 50 or
When I looked up Batman, Man Who Laughs, the Batman Who Laughs #1, there's something like 200 covers for that book. I had no idea there were that many exclusive covers. I fucking had no clue. I mean, I got the comic store ones, right? But I had no idea there were so many covers to that book. No, thank you. I don't. Yeah, I will do every comic store released standard cover that's possible for me to order from a distributor. If I'm at Comic-Con and there's a foil cover and it's cool, awesome, I'll pick it up, or if I see some online.
If you know the comic book store that did an exclusive and you talk to them regularly on the internet and say, hey, do you mind shooting me a copy?
I've bought a couple, but like if something like Doomsday Clock if there were store exclusive covers for Doomsday Clock, I probably would have sought them out. I probably would have done it for that. But every book, no, that's a little much. But traditionally published book, yeah. And to answer some of your questions, I mean, it's rarity. I mean, low print run is what it is. We sell tons of variant covers. It's, I mean, I'm there for the story, but the cover for some people just, and if you want the main cover and it's sold out and you have to buy a variant, that's what subscriptions are for. Subscribe to the book and subscribe to the main cover. Therefore, you'll never miss it. A couple more. Let's see. Brandon Holmes asks, what are some comic pitches that never happened that you wish would have seen the light of day? Every time I run across the Dwayne McDuffie Wonder Girl pitch, I think about how DC missed out. I never saw that one. I don't know what he had planned. I'll have to look that up. What are some pitches?
This is not a pitch, but it's in the spirit of his question.
Mm-hmm.
There was an ad, an ad in Marvel in the 80s, a one-page ad for a Roger Stern, Frank Miller, Doctor Strange series. And they ran the ad for it and the series never existed beyond that. I would love to see Frank Miller. This is Frank Miller Daredevil era.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doing Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that's a pitch.
There's also the Alan Moore Twilight of the Superheroes one, the legendary.
Yeah, that's a classic one. I would have liked to have seen that. Yeah, I feel like a lot of pitches, they tend to not really get publicized because they want to hold on to those ideas in case they use them down the road. So I wish I had a better answer to this question. I don't know. But I'll have to look up this Dwayne McDuffie Wonder Girl pitch.
I mean, it would have been nice to have seen the remaining portion of that Grant Morrison, Jim Lee Wildstorm, or Wildcats.
I mean, that's not too far off from a pitch that it didn't really see the light of day. What we got, 1 issue? 2 issues?
Yeah, 1 issue.
I think it was, trying to remember now, before Tom King came to DC, he pitched FF at Marvel.
Oh.
And they turned him down.
Yeah.
Suckers.
See that?
Trying to think, there were a few people who have actually talked about how they pitched an FF story at the time when Marvel wasn't interested in FF. A lot of people were trying to get them to bring that book back.
Oh, for years, and they wouldn't. Great segue into the next question from Squirrel Girl's favorite squirrel, Tippy Toes.
Oh.
I gotta finish that Squirrel Girl comic. I never finished reading it. What is the best Fantastic Four run for a newbie to Marvel's First Family? Tough question. I feel like the Mark Waid run is great, but I don't know how much of that's in print right now.
Isn't that the main hardcover right now, or no?
Is there?
Yeah.
Is there an omnibus for it?
Isn't that, or the Virengo? Isn't that Mark Waid?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an omnibus that's current out right now.
Oh, cool.
The Byrne run is great.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite.
The Hickman run, I don't know I would recommend it for a newbie.
No, but
it's cool.
I think you have to have a little bit more background knowledge of those characters because you're really dropped in the deep end with that. I honestly think Dan Slott's current run it's a very accessible, fun series. Like I said before, it feels a little bit like someone's covering the greatest hits, which is actually not a bad book for someone who hasn't read a lot of FF. I just think you go there and then you can read some other stuff that's a little bit better.
If the questioner has Marvel Unlimited, or you can, I don't know what the situation is with the Epic collections or what's on Comixology.
FX are really funny. They've done like the first 6 and like the last 6. That entire run in the middle, the 70s and 80s FF, and most of them, like the early 90s, not collected. So that entire burn run's just not collected.
Well,
it's coming. I mean, they're filling in.
The Lee Kirby, I wouldn't start with FF number 1 for a modern reader.
Yeah.
But if you could come in around the Galactus saga, which is like 48 through 50.
That's like the third book, fourth
those
book,
still hold up and are still really fun and really good.
Was it the Busick stuff that was the relaunch for Heroes?
That was Scott Lobdell. Yeah, I actually kind of liked our Heroes Return stuff quite a bit too.
Yeah.
Between that and the Burn Run and the Mark Waid Viringo run, I think those are the 3 best ones to jump in on.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mark Waid did a very similar thing where there was some kind of greatest hits run on there, kind of tying back in with classic FF stories, but Mark Waid, his art is just so perfect for Fantastic Four. He has such a great style, very fun, very, very light, fits the title really well, and Mark Waid is just a fountain of knowledge. I mean, he does such a good job of expanding the backstories of all these characters.
No, it's interesting to hear you talk about doing a greatest hits right now for Slot, because I do understand where you're going with that, with the stuff that I've read. At the same time, having the FF gone so long, I kind of question whether or not doing a best of is a good way to get people to reconnect who haven't been reading FF for a long time.
Well, there was that early Doom Galactus story. I'm reading the one right now where it's sort of like it's sort of like a mirror image of their origin, where they go back into space and kind of it's like the unintended consequences of their original trip and fleshing that out. And so it's, like I said, it's not bad. I want to see kind of that next step. Hickman's run is not any of that. It's so its own thing, but I feel like it works better if you have the knowledge of the other runs to sort of compare and contrast. Whereas if you go into Hickman's run and be like, this is awesome, but I have no idea what's going on. I don't know any of these characters.
Yeah. I don't know that you necessarily have to know all the runs, but you do have to have a good foundation for Hickman.
Well, like a lot of Hickman stuff, he does not explain shit. If you'd never read an X-Men comic before, I would not give you House and Powers. I really like them because you can contrast it to the other X-Men books. But if you go in I've never read an X-Men comic, I'm going to read this. I don't know what you'd get out of that book. I think you'd be very confused.
I don't know. I feel as a longtime X-Men fan, I'm very
still confused
anyways.
But again, you know what I mean? You at least have that.
But I know why I'm confused.
Yeah, exactly.
That way. I have the context to know the why.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let me hit this for the questioner real quick. Comixology, Marvel Unlimited, somewhere. This is a cheap option. One of maybe the greatest issue of Fantastic Four ever published. Single issue, not storyline. Single issue is number 250 of the Burn Run. The story is called Terror in a Tiny Town. Oh, I don't know if it's 250. I think it's like 236. Anyway, it's an anniversary issue. Terror in a Tiny Town is the story. You don't need to know. I still think that would be the perfect template for an FF movie. A newbie, a veteran, anyone could read that. It's a one and done, and you get everything in that one double-sized issue.
Yeah, it's 236.
Okay, 236. Yeah, 250 is where they fight the
it's Doom,
Skrulls. Yeah, Doom is in 236. Yeah. So find that somewhere. That is a great investment. If it costs you a couple bucks or you can read it for free on Marvel Unlimited, definitely worth your time.
Yep. All right, let's do one or two more, and then we will get out of here. It's from Jeremy. We're in the shop. So I was getting another shop owner on here. He says, thoughts on the importance of owning a property versus renting. And what's your pros and cons during the pandemic, when it comes to having a comic shop? I would love. What's that?
Yeah, like owning the whole store, like the actual building, or
see, outside of California, there's this thing called people own buildings. You know those zeros? There's like usually 2 or 3 less zeros on the price of a building when you go to other states outside California. So I would love to own my own building. That ain't happening ever, though. That's a fucking ton of money. That is just not possible in California for the vast majority of people. I think if you own a small standalone complex, or a standalone unit, that'd be awesome. But yeah, that is rough. Here, it's impossible. It's just not going to find it. They just don't exist.
Do it, Ryan. Do it.
Sure, lend me $50 million and I'll happily buy a building. Until then,
ask all your DC buddies to show up every week, and we'll do sign every week.
Ryan, you may be able to get a vacant movie theater for pretty cheap. Pennies on the dollar.
I was going to say, this may change soon, though. Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe.
Brock, you know what that means, though. We got to lift all the books for him.
Fuck that shit.
Move everything again.
No. He would fill as much of that as humanly possible with all the collections you could ever buy, and I would be stuck in this. Yeah, it's job security, whatever. Do it. All right.
I have told people this. I actually like being in something of a smaller area because I do have to really think about what we stock. If I was in some like 20,000 square foot building, I'd never get rid of anything. I'd keep everything forever because why not? You have infinite space, or you know what I mean.
I'm just trying to picture Ryan converting a movie theater into like I can see like the concessions area being like the traditional comic area, but I'm wondering what he would do with the actual theaters.
Each auditorium's like a reading room. This is the DC room. This is the Marvel room.
That'd be amazing. Oh, I would just play movies all day long. Are you kidding me? Like, here's the MCU movie, just a loop, just a constant loop of MCU. Here's the Snyderverse.
So if you had all these theaters, would you convert any of the theaters into like a game room?
Sure. I bought a movie theater. Like 1 billion square feet. Yeah, don't have 10 game rooms.
Yeah, we have a HeroClix room just where we would put Marshall.
yeah. Marshall's going to have his own room. All right, finally, let's wrap up. Let's wrap up with Tim's question. He says, is there a Donald Trump-like run of comics, not a person, a comic run that's objectively terrible, but which about half the readers will go down with the ship to defend? All right.
Well, then it's not objectively terrible if half the readers will defend it.
No Feet Man?
What was that?
No Feet Man?
Liefeld.
Yeah.
Liefeld.
Oh, I had no idea what you were trying to say. I don't. Sure.
I don't think that most of the stuff that he's known for is considered terrible. Like, I understand people don't care for his art, but I also don't know a lot of people who say, I hate the early X-Force issues, or I hate the end of New Mutants, or
How many people are talking about his fake Avengers book? How many people are talking about his Youngblood?
Yeah, but I consider that stuff a little different. Like
how many people?
Charlie's thinking.
Yeah.
The closest thing I can think of right now is like the Clone Saga.
Oh,
Like, just even I kind of succumb to the nostalgia to buy the omnibuses and stuff, and there is a part of me that's like, one of these days I'm going to sit down and try and read these omnibuses I've purchased. And it's going to remind me why I should not have purchased these omnibuses. But that's one of those things where I feel like for a long time, even myself, I just considered that went on way too long. It got really horrible. But like, as a comic reader at the time, I couldn't stop buying the issues. I had to see how it all like worked out.
I thought that was the sins of whatever, that one you read, that one Spider-Man book.
Sins Past?
Sins Past is different. Sins Past ruined a great run. That's very different. Like, Sins Past.
Do you think people still bought it because they were just buying it?
Well, yeah, it's a Spider-Man book. Of course, people are buying it. I don't care how bad it is.
That's one story arc that was horrible, and then it went back to normal. It's just like, and the great or horrible thing about it is, technically speaking, if I did want to reread all that, I could just skip that and it wouldn't affect the story whatsoever.
Right.
Like the rest of the Straczynski run to Spider-Man is still great. That's just that one blemish that wasn't just bad. It was painful.
Who's going to defend that run, though? Half the
Well-
readers of that aren't defending it, are they?
Well, that's where I'm wondering about like the Clone Saga. I think there are some people who turned around on it, and some people who got introduced to Spider-Man through it, and like to quote Dan Slott, or not quote Dan Slott because I don't have the exact quote in front of me. He did talk about how there are people out there who like Ben Reilly is their Spider-Man
Mm-hmm.
because that's where they jumped into it.
Right.
And I think for those people who got invested in the character through the Clone Saga and what came out of the Clone Saga, I can totally understand we'll defend it.
Well, I think that you could probably make that argument for a handful of other things through Spider-Man's history, like Brand New Day, and like the Superior Spider-Man stuff. Like some people like it, some people don't. You know,
but I don't think. Well, I would argue with people that say either of those are objectively bad. I think they're perfectly fine runs. You're always going to get people that like or dislike random stuff. I mean, it's very difficult to be objective because you're going to find people. You may think you're being objective, but other people don't think you're being objective. They're like, well, no, I like it, so you're wrong. I was like, oh, okay.
And I mean, the whole thing about buying something is, I always feel like it depends on how deep in you are at the point where you start going like, this has gotten bad. Like it's one of the hardest things for me to do comic wise, especially when looking through my collection, is I was collecting Spider-Man for a long time. I was collecting X-Men for a long time. I had so many issues of that series that at some point I had to go, you know what? I haven't read it for like the past 2 years, but I've been buying it. And that's when I finally went like, okay, I gotta stop. I can't keep buying a book that I can't bring myself to read.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, I stopped reading it, but was still buying it for 2 years. It took me 2 years to realize I can't read this book.
At least you figured it out.
Yeah.
All right. We are going to wrap up. Thank you all very much for listening to this episode. Especially Joey. I talked to a longtime listener and a new customer of the store online. We talked a bunch today. I was like, yeah, I'll throw you a shout out. So thank you, Joey. Thanks for continuing to listen to this podcast. We have to thank all our Patreon backers. There's Joe Duff, Andrew Nelson Mendez at Recovery of an Anime Junkie podcast, Craig Anderson at craigpanderson.com, James Laws, Jimmy Rivera at the Social Forum podcast, FOURUM, Jesse Peterson at the Comic Book Matters podcast, and Martin Aguilar. He's got a girlfriend. She does Pokemon card extension artwork. Really cool stuff at Lost Ghost Flower. That's on Instagram and on Etsy. So please go check out all of their different works and all of our backers at patreon.com/comicconspiracy. Thank you all very much. And we'll have a nice big round of thank yous next week for all our $5 and up backers. Please go check out Comic Conspiracy Podcast, geekbox.net, Apple Podcast, and Spotify for all our previous episodes. And if you can rate and review us, it does always help. That's what they tell us. YouTube.com/comicsconspiracy is where you can find all our previous episodes up on YouTube, just audio, but you can listen on there if you want. And the Comic Conspiracy at geekbox.net for those long form questions. You can send them over to us on there. If you want to buy comic books, you can go to comicsconspiracy.biz. That's our store website. Of course, you can set up a subscription account over at customer.comichub.com. Just link up to Comics Conspiracy. New app coming soon. New website supposed to be soonish. The app's pushed back a few weeks, I think, but it is coming pretty soon. I'm really excited for that.
And have they taken your advice on the user interfaces at all?
I've made a bunch of suggestions. We'll see what happens.
Cool.
Please go to conspiratobrock.com. That's Brock's blog, video pull list, and unboxing videos. Charlie's Doctor Who podcast wanders in the fourth dimension. We're a little Doctor Who light these days, but Charlie's still talking about that good old doctor. What are you covering now? You guys on like every couple week recording?
No, we do a monthly recording now, so it's only once a month. We talk about various Big Finish audio adventures that we've been covering. Like in the next one that we're releasing, we're actually talking about the second release they did for Missy.
Nice.
So we'll be covering that. We typically talk about various other shows that we've been watching in the meantime. Like Dave and I will be talking a little bit about Enterprise because we were doing a rewatch of that this month.
Have you heard about the show called Dark? I just started watching it on Netflix. It's pretty cool. I'm surprised no one recommended it to me before, but
So I started
Toby? No, nothing?
a little ways into Dark, but I realized that's hard to watch without devoting my complete attention to it. So
yeah, it is.
That makes it a little bit harder to find time to put it in. But I've caught up on The Walking Dead through where they're on Netflix now. So
cool. If you want to read some good interviews, go check out Kevin. He's got the creator interviews over at Between the Panels at fanbasepress.com. And of course, my wife, Leanne, she has her Etsy shop at etsy.com/shop/Leanne Hill Art. You can also find her art over at leannehill.com. If you are on Twitter, please follow all of us, Ryan Higgins Ryan, Brock Sager, Toby XI, that's Toby, Charlie is Insanity and Chaos, Kevin is That Kevin Sharp, the store is Comics Con Store, and please check out the Geek Box, although no new episode this week. Ryan Scott's been super busy with his new job, so we're taking a skip week this week, but we will be back next week, I'm sure, to talk all about adventures in Final Fantasy XIV, plans of Final Fantasy XIV. And also check out our friends over at Manga Machinations, where they talk about manga and anime. All right, guys, thank you very much for being on another episode. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.